This slide up here came to me. I was going to do a presentation on our long-range planning committee recommended to our board that we call a bond and have an election in May. And I had this huge demographic study, and I was going to go through all the growth and development and subdivisions that are coming in, and show you where all the people from California will be living apparently. And then I got this slide, and I thought, I don't know that that's exactly what they want to hear about, but maybe I'll come back and share that with you at another time. Before I get started, I do want to say this. We had a young lady who was crossing the street out in front of the high school today, and she was hit by a car. It was an accident. She was actually going to the Church of Christ. Her mom was in the other parking lot. I can't imagine a worse thing for her parent to have to witness. The young lady, thank you to our police department, Michigan GPD. They responded quickly. She was care flighted to Fort Worth. She was conscious, but they're doing a CAT scan, and I haven't got a report. So, as you guys know, with head injuries and kids, just if you don't mind, just lift her up in prayer. I wanted to say that before I got started. So I know what the pressing issues are, and so I feel like it's best just to kind of jump in and talk about CRT. We'll talk a little bit about library books. We'll talk about school taxes and COVID and bonds. I've got 10 slides. I'll go through them, and then I'll do Q&A, because I'm sure that you'll have some questions for me as well. I will say this, because I have trustees in the room. The opinion, sometimes I tend to get on a soapbox. Please know that I'm not speaking for my trustees. I'm just, I'll let you know up front, I'll keep my opinions are my own, and you'll find out that I'll be pretty authentic in my answers. I would rather be authentic and make mistakes than be robotic and insincere. And so with that, this slide came and it said, what measures are being taken by GISD to ensure our children are not being taught woke curriculum such as CRT, white privilege, or any other form of racism? And I read that and I thought, my Lord, our country needs a hero more than ever. And let's see if I can get this clicker to work.
Oh, we're back here.
I'll just point at you.
Tried on the picture gig, but the light came on finally.
Pushing the arrow button. Yeah, you're ready to get to that part. I can just point at you and we can space bar. How does that work? Well, let's test it. That's not my slide.
We like that one, though.
Meanwhile, Mag's farm.
Tell a joke. Tony Mobley shaking his head no, so probably will pass. My son, as I was getting ready, I put on like 10 pounds since Christmas. I typically eat real well. I haven't been eating real well. And so as I was getting ready, I walked by my 7th grader and I said, "Hey, is this sport coat feeling kind of tight? It doesn't make me look fat, does it?" And he goes, "No, but your belly does." That's about all the time I can buy. Oh, I got it. There we go. So the answer to the question, how do you ensure that your school district is not teaching a woke curriculum. How do you ensure that there are not materials and curriculum in your schools? Well, the answer is right there on that picture. And let me talk a little bit about our school board, because it is School Board Appreciation Month. And I hope you know who your trustees are, but if you don't, there they are in front of you. Our president, right there at the front, is Barbara Townsend. She is a member of this club. I will tell you that Barbara is one of the smartest individuals I know. She is very methodical in her thinking. I spend a lot of time each day talking to the board president, running everything that's going on in my head by them to make sure they understand exactly what we're doing. And she's very reflective in her approach, and it's much appreciated. To her right is Dr. Harrington. Dr. Harrington has been in the school business since Moby Dick was a minnow. She has been around forever. For those of you who don't know, she is actually the second female high school principal ever appointed to that position in the state of Texas. And she just brings an extraordinary amount of wisdom and grace to our board. Also on the front row is Paula McDonald, who is with us tonight. And I can tell you, Paula is a passionate board member. She loves being on our board. She's a former educator, she's a mom, and she cares deeply about our teachers and our kids and what's being taught in our district. On the top row, you have Mike Moore, who works for First National Bank. And I can tell you, he has a wife who is a counselor in the district, 2 kids in the district. He is a banker, and he is just methodical when it comes to looking over our district finances, and especially when it comes to looking at our tax rates. And so Mike just brings a really great financial perspective to our board. And across from him is Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson is actually the guy responsible for bringing me here. He has been my board president longer than anyone else. 3 years we spent together. And have you ever heard the phrase, iron sharpens iron? I would say that applies to Mark. He is somebody that I always can call for good wisdom, good discernment. There have been times where when COVID hit the district, I would waver, and he was always somebody that I could lean on for just good, solid advice. Our 2 newest trustees have really gotten an indoctrination into the school business. They have been thrown into the fire. And so I'll start with Melanie Graff. She is a loving wife and a loving mother. She is kind-hearted. She has come in, and I gotta be honest, she's kind of a nerd. So, like, trustees have like an entire year to get all this training done. In like a month, she had all of her training done. And she is just so studious. And so if there was like a GT class for board members, Melanie would get in that class. And then we have Courtney. And so Courtney came on the board, and you talk about somebody that is, I mean, she walks into our meetings and she is methodical, she is thoughtful, she reads through her packets. I mean, she wants to make sure before she makes a decision, it has been thoroughly vetted. She's a fighter. She fights for what she believes in. She's kind of like my little 5'5" John Wayne, except she's a female, and I think unlike California, we're not going to take her name off an airport. So anyway, it's a great group, and it's Board Appreciation Month, and I'm telling you, if you care about public schools, you got to be involved with who your elected officials are. These are the individuals that make policy. These are the individuals that have to have the backbone. When I say something in a meeting, they have to have the backbone to stand up and say, you know what, that's exactly what we're doing. And they do it. They do it day in and day out, and they make sure they represent the values of this community. You should be proud of them. I enjoy working with them, and I know they are all champions for kids.
Very good, here.
There it is. I got it.
So is it like a delay feature?
perfect, well, go.
So I may just start talking as they get to the
Yeah.
next slide. I really need the next slide though.
Somebody got the
Here it
There
is.
you go.
Board of Education.
Hey,
Hey.
so when I was in school, that was the Board of Education, right? That's why I needed this slide. I probably could make it on all the other ones. I'll tell you when I was a kid, if a teacher or a principal called my house and said I did something wrong, not only would I get the board in school, I would get the belt at home. And so when I got into education, I was excited. I was like, yes, I'm excited to get in here, and I'm going to pick up the phone as principal, and I'm going to make a phone call, and parents are going to say, you take care of them. And some parents do. But let me say this. School districts in Texas and across the United States, something has happened in the last 30 years. We have lost the public's trust. And districts across the state are under attack. And what has happened, just to be honest, is control, a lot of control, was given to school districts. And it was abused. And now we're dealing with the fallout from that. That trust that was given overwhelmingly to teachers and administrators to do the right thing and make sure the values of the community were represented all the time. It was abused over and over again. There's two things people don't like to mess with, and that's their kids and their money. And in a school district, we mess with both of them. And so that tends to create problems. And I can tell you, we have great educators in our school district across Hood County. And I'm not just talking GISD, Toller ISD, Lipan ISD, Cornerstone, Premier. They're good people that have values that align with you in this room. I can promise you that. But I also know that there are districts in our state that make errors that reflect poorly on us. And so I can tell you in La Jolla ISD, they passed a bond to build a water park. And Granbury ISD tax dollars went down there to help build the water park. That makes it hard on us when we come and say we're classrooms, we need school buildings because we're growing. When someone picks up the paper and says, you're taking my tax dollars and you're building a water park. Or maybe you're in San Antonio ISD, you pick up the newspaper and you see where the superintendent of San Antonio ISD says, I'm going to mandate vaccines to all employees. And then I've got to field 2 weeks worth of phone calls saying, why are you mandating vaccines? I've got employees coming in my office saying, I'm resigning. You're not going to mandate a vaccine. And I'm saying, not San Antonio ISD. Or you got Frisco ISD. And we know about the separation of church and state. And we know there are individuals that are quick to throw that down our throats and say, hey, you know what? You can't pray in school. Prayer is not allowed in school. But if you're Frisco ISD in 2017, Frisco ISD opened up Muslim prayer rooms to allow them to come in and worship in their school buildings. But then others will complain that we have Fellowship of Christian Athletes when it's student-led. Those things are not happening in GISD, but they do happen across the state, and it reflects poorly on all of us. And so our job, and what I think our Board of Trustees is committed to, is to restoring trust and making sure that power that we were entrusted with years ago is given back to the people of our community, making sure that our parents have a voice in their child's education. Dwight Eisenhower said, you want to get people to follow you got to get them to want to do it. You can't make them do it. And so the COVID process, there we go, we got it figured out now, has been pretty tough to navigate. So when we talk about mandates, when we talk about power of school districts, I can tell you that it has manifested itself in COVID. It started with TEA in March of 2020 coming in and closing down school districts across the state of Texas. mandated that we had to close, whether we wanted to or not. And I can tell you, we had trustees that did not want to shut our doors. And when we were able to open them in June, we opened them in June and started summer school. And then last year, after we had got through summer school and not worn masks, all of a sudden TEA said, put on masks. Masks are mandated. And as soon as we were allowed to take masks off, I think we waited maybe 2 extra weeks because we had just come off spring break, we took them off. And testing and isolation and mandate after mandate after mandate has come down from TEA. And I'm probably a little bit of a Governor Abbott apologist, but one of the things that does frustrate me a little bit is the Commissioner of Education is actually a former Dallas ISD board member. And so if you look at a community, a lot of times it's a reflection, who they elect is a reflection of their community. And so when you put a politician in office that is a Dallas ISD board member, I know that sometimes those values come out. But here in Hood County, and I think across the state, it's been very hard on districts that want to remain open. And we continuously have to deal with the state of Texas telling us what we have to do to stay open. And so some people would say, well, why do you do that? Just don't listen to the state. Well, we have 1,100 employees, and a lot of them rely on us for that paycheck to feed their families and take care of their families. And so it puts us in an interesting and precarious situation. And so we navigate that line, even though it's tough. And I'm proud to say that our district, unlike a lot of districts, we got off remote learning quick, and we have stayed open, from June of 2020. So as early as schools were allowed to open, we were allowed to open. And that's something that we're proud of as a district. And so after Hurricane Katrina hit, TEA did a study, and a lot of those kids lost, I was telling our trustees last night, about 3 to 4 months of education when that storm hit. They couldn't go back into their schools. And so TEA did a study. They kind of tracked the rest of their high school career. And what they discovered was it took 4 years for those kids to get back on grade level in reading, and they never got back on grade level in math. The crisis of this pandemic for our kids is their education. They're losing it. And there's a huge COVID slide, and it's not just statewide, it's nationally. And people, when they talk about we're going to shut down our schools, we're not going back, we're worried about this and that, GISD has shown that you can stay open, along with Toller and Lipan and many other districts across the state. So nationally, when you see districts in Chicago closing down or saying we're not going to open in New York or we're going to go virtual, know that we have shown that school districts can remain open safely. And I'm proud of our teachers for doing that. Go to the next slide. So we are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know if you can see the picture up there. Thought it was pretty cool that they could get Dave Eagle to pose for that one. Just kidding. So Representative Krause had concerns about textbooks that were getting into our schools. The way schools buy books, sometimes it comes in bulk, so they will order big blocks of books. Sometimes books will be sent in for free, and other times librarians just purchase books. And so Representative Krause, because that's a use of taxpayer money, he had a list of 850 books that he was concerned about. From there, Governor Abbott sent a letter to TEA, putting all schools on notice that any pornographic material that is in your schools needs to be removed. In fact, TEA was actually investigating Keller for Christmas. So upon reading that letter, GISD, we wanted to be proactive. We started looking in our libraries. And I will tell you, we came across some books that were not on Representative Krause's list. 5 particularly came to our attention pretty quick. And I can tell you the first one I read made it pretty easy to pull it immediately. Last night we had a board meeting, and we love when people come out and speak. It is something our board looks forward to, and everybody is entitled to come and give their opinion to our board. But what was misrepresented by a lot of individuals speaking was that the books we were pulling, we were just looking at like social issues or saying, hey, we didn't want our kids to be given information about different cultures, and that was not true at all. The books were disgusting, they were vulgar, and they were pornographic. And they had no business being in our schools. So 5 have been pulled, and there's another 130 that we now are going to go through meticulously before we ever let them go back on our shelves. And we have a committee that's taking care of that. But what bothers me about it is when people come up there and they get on social media and they start trying to stir the pot and they start trying to slander trustees and they make accusations that are totally false. And that's what happened last night, and it's heartbreaking because it confuses people who aren't in the know. And so I will tell you today, I sent a letter to all 1,100 employees in the ISD, and I walked them through what happened with Representative Krause, to Governor Abbott, to our Board of Trustees, to the books that we found, and I actually copied the pages in the book and let them know exactly what they said. And I will tell you, overwhelmingly, our staff came back and said, thank you for pulling that out of our libraries. It is no place. First of all, the writing is lazy, it's toxic, and the people that defend it in our public schools, it's plain evil. There's no place for it. And so I've held a lot of titles in my life. You mentioned that I was Coach Glenn at one time. That seems like a long time ago. The best title that I've ever had is the title of Dad. And I'll tell you that my kids go to Granbury ISD, and I can assure you that I don't want them to have access to that material, which means I don't want anybody's kids to have access to that material. And I'm not naive. I know with cell phones today, we have firewalls all over the school. Kids can turn off that data and they can look at whatever they want to. But we are not going to endorse it. And so if I had to make a point about it, last night I came across pretty stern because I really am passionate about it and I believe in it. But I'll tell you, it speaks to a greater problem I see. And I'm just, and if you'll bear with me on a quick story, I cut my teeth in administration. I guess it was my second job in a town called Trinity. And so for those of you that are not familiar, it's kind of on I-45 East Texas. But Kevin Brady, who is Congressman, chair of the Ways and Means, I believe. And so Brady was a young politician at the time, and Trinity was his only Democratic county. He was solid red. And so earlier I heard some of the speakers say, hey, we want to be solid red. So Brady, the only county in his entire precinct that was blue was Trinity County. And they really weren't blue. They were, I call it Alabama blue. You know, the song, My Daddy Was a Veteran, a Southern Democrat. They ought to get a rich man to vote like that. They didn't know until 2008 when Obama became president. They were like, oh no, we're really Republicans. But before that, they thought they were Democrats. And so Brady would come up there, it was such a small town, but he would come up there and he would talk to them, and I remember they would just hammer him on issue after issue after issue. And he was so kind whenever he responded to them. And I remember the lesson from it of just, here are people that he knew that he really had more in common with than different, but and he would try and explain to them, like, the things you're saying, you're a Republican, and they would be like, no, we're Democrats. And he would always come back with love. And I will tell you that it was heavy on my heart last night. And I called my Sunday school teacher this morning, and talk to him about it. I wish I could have responded a little more with love, because I know some of the people there were activists and they were doing it for political reasons. And I will tell you, because I know a lot of you are big into politics, but as a superintendent, as a school man, I'm going to pull a page out of Tony Evans's book. Fathers today have got to be more concerned with what's happening in their own house than they are with what's happening in the White House. And some of the people that were there last night saying, hey, these books belong in our schools, they were doing that for political reasons, and they're more concerned with politics than what their kids are actually doing. And that's a problem, because schools are not here to raise kids. That is, we are a part of a community that will help you raise kids. But we are not raising them for you. And any individual that would put a political agenda above their own kids, that's a cause for concern with me. And so with love, I really want to go out to those families and say, please, like, read this material. Are you sure you want your 13-year-old daughter to see this? Because this could affect her the rest of her life. This could affect how she thinks a man should treat her in a relationship. And it's horrible.
It is.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Let me talk about some good stuff, because we do get a lot right, too. GISD has won 13 national championships in MCGROTC on our rifle team. That's a picture of last year's national championship. We just won our ninth combined boys and girls district championship in swimming. This year, we'll award, I got a lot, so don't applaud it all over. This year, we'll award in dual credit classes. We're going to award nearly 2,000 hours of dual credit classes among our high school students. So for most of our kids, it's not uncommon for them to get about 30 hours. Think about that. 30 hours done in high school will save your parents, if you're going to like a Texas Tech or a Texas A&M, that's like a $25,000, $30,000 savings for these families. 2,000 hours just this year alone. We offer 18 industry-based certifications. Those are certifications that kids can leave high school with and go right into the workforce. And probably the thing that I'm most proud of, and I say it every chance I get, most public schools send a student to a military academy once every 7 years. Granbury averages 1.5 a year. This year, we will send 2 to West Point, including one that will shoot on the West Point rifle. And if that's not enough, right now, and then this, I won't be able to say this much longer, but I'm gonna squeeze every drop I can out of this beat. We have a student at the Air Force Academy, at Annapolis, at West Point, at the Coast Guard Academy, and at the Merchant Marine Academy. How many schools have that? That's impressive. And that begins with our JROTC program, Colonel Casey and First Sergeant Rositas. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but they have achieved such a high ranking that nationally a letter from Colonel Casey at Granbury High School carries the same weight with a military academy as Ted Cruz. So that's absolutely amazing. It's something we should be proud of as a community. So go to the next slide, and let's talk about CRT, because we're digging in. So I pulled the definition. I'm asked a lot, what is CRT? And so I'm going to give you the definition. It is a divisive curriculum that pushes efforts to persuade white people that they are inadvertently racist and should feel guilty about their advantages. Governor Abbott has said it can't be taught in public schools. The Texas legislature said it can't be taught in public schools. And the Granbury ISD Board of Trustees said it won't be taught in Granbury ISD. So I think for me, just so you know where my heart is on this, I read a quote from Dr. Ben Carson, and in his quote about critical race theory, he said that it's indoctrination, and then he quoted Proverbs 22:6, train a child in the way they should go, and when they're older, they'll not turn from it. And then he talked about it being divisive. And that divisive is a big word. There is a book that some of you might be familiar with called Rules for Radicals. And one of the key components in that is if you want to take a country and you want to switch them to socialism, you got to figure out a way to divide them. And the recommended approach is through class warfare, which has traditionally been tough in the United States because even our lower income people, most of them have a cell phone, they got a car, they got a little money in their pocket, and so we're not talking about when I go on mission trips to like Guatemala or Mexico and you see like real generational poverty. And so class warfare has been hard. Well, what has not been hard in America is race warfare. And so last week, you probably saw in the news that New York removed Teddy Roosevelt's statue. Before that, a Lincoln statue was removed in Boston. And before that, Robert E. Lee statue was removed in Richmond, Virginia. It was removed in Richmond, Virginia, the mayor said, because it was a symbol of oppression and slavery. My concern with taking down statues is twofold, and I'm not going to get like super political on you, but I will say that in Poland you can go to Auschwitz, where Jews were slaughtered, and they didn't bulldoze it to forget about it. They left it there as a reminder of what happened. And that we never want to go back to that place.
Amen.
And so when I hear somebody say we've got to take this down because it's a symbol of oppression and slavery, it comes to my mind. Grant owned slaves. Washington owned slaves. Jefferson owned slaves. I mean, where does it stop? Where does it end? I guess I know where it ends because I had people come to a board meeting last night and said it ends with textbooks that have pornography in it. We'll allow that, but we're not going to allow a statue of Theodore Roosevelt. I bring that up because at the heart of critical race theory is division, and we cannot allow our community to get divided on issues like that. We cannot allow our schools to become a place where we try and incorporate those ideas. That is not our place. That is not our role. Our role is to educate kids, period. I love a quote from Thomas Paine. He said, "Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered, yet we have this consolation that the greater the conflict, the more glorious a prize. What we obtain too easily, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value." Amen. So I ask you, what's important to you? This is the Hood County Republican Club. Pull a little data for you. Romney won Texas by 16 percentage points over Obama. Trump beat Hillary by 9 percentage points. Biden lost only by 5.5. You seeing the trend? Why should we care? Let's go to my next slide. This community is growing. And I don't know if you can see it, but I'll read it to you. The 2010 census, we had 48,000 people in Hood County. In 2021, we're up to 64,900. If we continue growing at the current rate, in the 2030 census, this community will be over 100,000 strong. So are people moving in? Absolutely they're moving in, and they're moving in droves. GISD, we're graduating our smallest senior class, 407 kids. The incoming 8th grade class, 640 kids coming in. We're going to add 200 kids to the high school if nobody else moves here next year, just because the 8th grade class is bigger than the senior class. We're going to have 11,000 kids in GISD by 2032. Think about that. Right now, every day when we open our school, 10% of the, actually 12% of the population of Hood County goes to our school district, either as a student or a teacher or a worker. Think about that. That's incredible. We have 8,800 people that come into our school every day that we're open. It's important. It's important to have good board members. It's important to have good oversight. By 2027, 7 of our 10 schools will be full. You see up there, 28% of the population is now below the age of 18. Historically, this is a retirement community, not anymore. It's getting younger and younger. And the average household income is going up, and the number of households just in general are coming up. So it's an important time to invest in our schools. Thomas Jefferson said a democracy cannot exist without an educated populace. An investment in education is a good investment. I will tell you, when I was in school, this is another pet peeve of mine on curriculum. If someone asks me what happened on December 7th, 1941, I can absolutely answer that. Today, if you ask a kid what happened on December 7th, 1941, they're going to pull out their phone and they're going to Google it. And don't think that whoever is in control of Google doesn't have a lot of power. I'll tell you another just kind of fun fact, like if I grab a calculator, I use my index finger and punch on it, and a calculator to a kid, but they're like dominant fingers, their thumb. It's the weirdest thing. Go to the next slide. So yeah, we are now looking at the possibility of a bond election. Actually, it was called, so it's no longer a possibility. I'll say this, I heard it called a debt election. It's a debt election. Let's make no mistake about it. Currently, here's where GISD ranks in our comparison group as far as debt. We have $93 million in principal debt. We will be adding to that. Our debt-to-value ratio is 1.3%. I always like to put that in layman's terms because a lot of people are like, what's debt-to-value ratio? If you have a $100,000 mortgage and you owe the bank $1,300, that's the equivalent of what our debt-to-value ratio is in Granbury. It's incredibly, incredibly low. And so our trustees, we could spend a lot of time talking about how well they have managed the debt. They've done a great job. But in 2013, we passed a bond. It was at a 15-cent tax increase. It generated $89 million. The tax rate was $1.26.5. In 2021, our current tax rate is $1.888. Thanks to House Bill 3, and I don't think Mike Lane is here and Ryan Birdwell, but I do want to thank both of those guys, and if you see them, they passed legislation in House Bill 3 that better funded schools and also provided significant tax relief. And so in addition to our board lowering the INS tax rate, I guess right at 12 cents, 11 cents since the 2013 election, your state reps worked hard during that session with House Bill 3 to lower your property taxes. Now, you didn't see that when you got your tax statement because your values went up so high that it washed out. But when we look at a bond election, we're looking at, we actually looked at what 15 cents would look like. 15 cents in 2013 generated $89 million. This community has grown in value so much that 15 cents today is worth over $300 million. So the committee took that information and they said, look, we know we have growth issues at the elementary level, at the junior high level, at the high school level, and they proposed what has been dubbed kind of the 4 for 1. Let's build one school, one high school, one new high school, not a second high school, but one new high school. We'll turn our existing high school into a junior high school, and then our 2 junior highs, we're going to turn those into elementary schools. Those of you who have been here a long time, it's kind of what we did with Bronner. Yes. Bronner was a junior high, and we turned it into an elementary. So same principle. It's a way to continue to make good use of our buildings while providing our kids with great facilities. It will not come cheap. Construction costs are high. Labor costs are high. We know inflation is coming. The committee made the decision to recommend it to the board now because at the end of the day, here's what we said. I don't like taxes. None of us like taxes. But it's not going to get cheaper, and we've got to be proactive. We don't want a situation where we're like the city trying to figure out wastewater, or like the school, the city, and the county trying to figure out infrastructure and roads. We want to get ahead of it. And now money is cheap. Borrowing money is cheap. With the inflation that's coming, it's not always going to be the case. And so, make no mistake about it, unless you're 65 or older and your taxes are frozen, it will be a tax increase. And even if our board lowers the INS tax rate, and even if you see the M&O tax rate come down, very likely you're going to see the appraisal district raise the value of your homes, which is a good thing if you want to sell your home. It's not necessarily a good thing if you're planning to live there the next 20 years. But I just want to be honest with you. The investment is important because it's for our kids, and it's going to have to be made. It's going to have to be made at some point. And my belief is that the people in this room, there are antagonists that will say this is the group of no. I disagree with that. I say the people in this room are the people that built this country, built this city, made it what it is today, and we're not going to let it crumble on our watch. That's why you're here tonight, because you care. You care about what's happening at the local level and the state. So I will wrap up, and then I'll take some questions. With you're wondering, why is there a picture of a horse up there? Had an old board member tell me one time, I was throwing out the word synergy. It was a book from Stephen Covey, and I really had a hard time understanding what synergy was. And he explained it to me. He was a dairy farmer. His name was Mike Engel. And he said, Jeremy, I'll tell you what synergy is. He goes, you know how much dead weight a horse can pull? I said, Mike, I have no idea how much weight. And he said, about 400 pounds. And he goes, you know how much dead weight 2 horses can pull? And I said, 800 pounds, Mike. One can pull 400, the other can pull 400, that's 800 pounds. He goes, you know, you would think so, wouldn't you? He goes, but they can pull about 1,200 pounds. I said, really? I said, why is that? And he said, because of synergy. 2 people working together, 2 entities working together can accomplish more than any one on their own.
Right.
As a school district, I will tell you, we need the county working with us, and I'm so grateful for our county commissioners. Most of them, if I pick up my cell phone, I have their cell phone numbers, I can call them, and they are quick to answer. They are quick to work with us on issues related to bringing the DPS here, or buildings, or whatever we need. And they know that they can call me. And the same goes for our city council, past and present. I mean, they are easy to work with. They want good things for kids. And that's probably the great thing about my job is most people want good things for kids. And so working together is easy. But I will tell you this, it will take more than the city and the county. It is going to take the people rising up to make a stand. Because I will tell you, there are individuals out there that want to destroy what you believe. They don't believe in the same America that you and I grew up in. And that's just the truth. And I'm sure they would proudly admit it. I don't think they would back down from that. But our community has to decide whether or not we want to hold the line. And if we do want to hold the line, I assure you, we will make more progress when we work together. So with that, God bless you.
When do you anticipate the new high school for the bond?
Yeah, so the bond election will be in May, and probably the same time. You may be able to better answer that. Y'all's early May election. Thank you. Actually, I thought ours was early May. Is there an early May election? Maybe it's in May. Okay. Okay, thank you. We'll get that. It is May of 2022. Yeah. So, and it takes 3 years to build a high school. So the earliest anything would open would be August 2025. And so that's why there's a bit of a sense of urgency. Yes, sir.
I got a question. Talk about the mandates when they ordered you to close the schools, that the TEC came down and ordered us to close the schools, and you were against that, which I commend you for. How do we change that?
So, Governor, okay, so the question is, Texas Education Agency mandated all schools have to close. Texas Education Agency is run by the Commissioner of Education. Commissioner of Education is appointed directly by the Governor of the state of Texas. So, you can call Greg, put in a word.
Our tax dollars that fund that.
It is. So I'll tell you, and
It's
again,
supposed to work for us.
absolutely. And so, and I'll say Governor Abbott opened it back up quick, but again, you got to think that the Commissioner of Education, his background is a Dallas ISD trustee. So his lens is I want to make everything Dallas ISD. And so I worked in Waxahachie, just south of Dallas. Waxahachie is home to a guy named Clay Jenkins, who is county judge of Dallas County. So I kind of have a little bit of background on what Dallas County politicians think. So we'll leave it at that, because I'm sure you have your own opinions.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. I just wanted to ask a really kind of a two-layer question. I've heard and I've taken a tour of the CTE facility at the high school, and what I hear is that now would be able to be extended into the middle school and get that started off earlier. Is that correct?
That is correct. So when we talk about expanding industry-based certifications, we're also talking about pushing that down into the junior high. Our JROTC, what breaks my heart is we're about to start having to tell kids that want to be cadets in our Marine Corps JROTC program that we don't have the room, and we're going to have to start turning them away. There's only 3 classrooms, and we got like 200 of them. So that's a great concern to me. But yes, sir, you are correct. We would actually be able to take JROTC down to the junior high level. We'd be able to take engineering, aviation, culinary, all of those programs would be able to be offered at the junior high level.
And you might want to add with the supply chain issue of truck driving school. The second thing is I've heard the term education destination. Could you kind of tell us what your vision is there?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think for years, Granbury has been known as a residential destination. People move here because it's a great place. It's a great place to live, work, and retire. As a school system, we want to be known as an educational destination. We want people to move to our community so they will, because they know it's a great school system and they want their kids to be educated in our school system. They know our values, they know our beliefs, they know what we stand for, and we want you to be proud of the product we are putting out. We want that product to come back here and live and work and vote and give back to our community. There's honor in that. So I see my friend Eric over there. I tell him all the time he's got 2 kids. His daughter's at the University of Oklahoma, which, by the way, Oklahoma, every county in Oklahoma is red. So Eric made sure that he sent her up there in the Republican country. But we have that conversation all the time is, what if she comes back here to raise her kids? You know, me personally as a dad, that would be great. I would love if my kids came back here so I could watch T-ball right here in Granbury and not drive to Burleson or Fort Worth or Mansfield. But are kids going to do that if we don't have a strong school system? And in my opinion, I don't think they will, because I think young parents are going to base their decision on what educational opportunities are offered.
I attended last night's meeting. My wife and I have been attending the school board for about 9 months. Just as citizens, just trying to learn. I've met several of the board members and trustees, they're wonderful people. So what you said, I can confirm. There were about 17 people that spoke last night concerning the books. To my count, off the top of my head, there were about 12 or so that were completely in support of the books remaining, right? Most of those were young kids. And I want to compliment them only in the sense of the way they carry themselves. not in their message. I'm in complete disagreement with them. But I leaned over to Mr. Ross and I said, you know what? You guys are producing kids that can stand up and speak, even though I don't agree with them. So compliments for that.
Yes, sir, the kids did an amazing job. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I wanted to say in front of everyone here is you did an excellent job in your rabbi. You did. You were firm, but you weren't mean. And it was very clear how you felt about it. So compliments to you. Thank you.
Let me say this, it makes it easy when you have a supportive board of trustees. So grateful our trustees and all they do. And as far as the kids go, some of their comments were, it was based on information, and they didn't have all the information. And I think that once some individuals got a copy of what was in that text, I'm not sure that they would have spoken.
Well, I will tell you, my kid in school today, the whole school, all the kids were caught up in what happened last night, and there was much misinformation going around. Even so much, just so you know, that was going around the high school was that the teachers were in support of the book staying in school, which is not true.
That is not true. I can tell you that I heard a rumor of that in the morning, and by the afternoon, I made sure the teachers knew exactly what was in those books. So,
I was at the meeting last night, and I do commend you for your strong stand. I also did not hear who is on the committee. Has it already been set up to read the books and see what's going on with the books? And if they're not full, I want to be part of it.
We do have a committee. So this initial committee at the district level, we have some community members utilizing board input to get them on board, and then we have a district librarian, a couple of teachers from the high school and an elementary level, and then our curriculum director will chair it. Eventually, what we want to do, we're going to put stronger systems in place to be more proactive on the front end. That's where it really has to start. Doing the autopsy is messy and ugly, and you got to see it last night. So ideally, what we're going to see are committees at the campus level, and they're a form that they fill out. Parents will check off on it, principal will sign off on it, librarian will sign off on it, and so we'll have an accurate count of every book that goes in and why it was placed in our library. Yes, sir.
Dr. Martin, someone here mentioned an education destination. And I can tell you that when I was looking at where to move from Plano, Texas, GISD factored highly into my decision to move to Granbury. And with young kids, we've been very pleased, and we intend to stay in GISD. Now, my question involves real estate. Your predecessor, Dr. Largent, and that board had a vision to build a second high school and to build it on the Atkins side. And a lot of real estate was acquired for that purpose. My understanding is that the district still owns that real estate. My question to you is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the plan is to acquire additional real estate north of 377 rather than to build the high school on the existing real estate the district owns. I just would like an explanation of that.
Yeah, twofold. So first of all, the land was acquired well before Dr. Largent. A portion of that land was actually carved out for the YMCA. The district still has retained 77 acres of that property. And yes, that land is being considered as a site for the new high school. However, I will tell you, we will be having conversations with our architect, the county, and the city, because what we don't want to do is create more of a traffic nightmare for our community by putting the high school in the wrong spot. So it's going to be kind of an extensive process. I can tell you that our trustees, led by Barbara Townsend, they're working on this every day. So we have the property, we might use the property, but we've got to vet some other properties just to make sure that it's being put in the right location. It almost certainly will be put on the eastern side of our county. It has to be. I mean, that's where the growth is. That's where we're going to push traffic out to. And so we're considering a lot of options at this point. As far as the two high schools, really the trigger number for that is about 10,000 kids. it would be hard for us to afford 2 football coaches, 2 high school principals, 2 band directors, 2 of everything in CTE. When we hit about 10,000 kids, we can have that conversation as a community, whether we want to have 1 giant high school or 2 smaller high schools. This bond election would not hamper that. In fact, it would really make it easier, because you would have a school on either side of the lake if you built the new high school on the eastern side, and then you could, essentially tear everything back down, turn the high school back in, what would be the junior high back into a high school. I know this is getting confusing, and what is currently the junior high is back into junior high. Does that make sense? So that was like way down. But we would have flexibility. Where I'm going is we would have flexibility to grow the new high school into a mega high school like Allen, which has 7,000 plus kids in their high school, or we'd have the flexibility to go the Midlothian or the Burleson model, where you just have 2 high schools, one on either side of the lake.
This is our last question.
Last question.
Okay, Dr. Glenn, thank you for all you do. You mentioned during your presentation that some of our school tax revenues go elsewhere, away from Granbury School District. Can you provide some clarity on that and just give us an update on the status of that?
Yeah. So what you're referring to, you probably all heard it called Robin Hood. That makes sense. So what happened is Granbury has been a property wealthy district, meaning before House Bill 3, we sent a ton of money back to the state of Texas, to the tune of, I think, $9 million. That's a lot. That's a lot of our tax dollars that were going elsewhere to districts like La Jolla that were building water parks, which is extremely frustrating, especially when we need classroom space. We still have to pay into recapture. This year, we'll probably be paying about $3 million in recapture. Now, here is the interesting thing. What I can tell you about INS money, so bond money, that is not subject to recapture. The state of Texas can't pull that back. So once that money is committed on the INS side into a bond, the state of Texas cannot grab those dollars. So we can keep them here local. And that's something that's important too.
Have you put a dollar sign on this?
The dollar sign is $394 million.
With an M? Or
Yeah. Is that not enough?
That's a discount.
And also just thinking about it, it's a lot. Like I say, it is a 20-cent tax increase. The last bond, again, 15 cents. That's been shaved down to 4 cents. And so with the growth we're going to see in the community, with the growth we're going to see in the community, we're not going to realize that 20 cents because we're going to see a larger tax base coming in, more people are moving in. But don't let me mislead you here. The truth is that the value of your property is going to go up. And just like you've seen with the taxes that have come down to the school in the past, as the value of your property rises, you're going to pay more. So I'm not up here to try and, I know there are school districts are like, vote yes, no tax increase. I'm not trying to sell you a bill of goods here. The value of your home will go up and you will pay more taxes because that is the way the state has designed the public education funding system. And so until that is changed, totally changed, that's the way all public schools are funded. But even with that 20 cents and even with that $394 million added to it, we're still in the bottom quarter of our comparison group. All that information is on the GISD website under Long Range Planning Committee, as well as the videos from the Long Range Planning Committee. Wrapping it up quick for you. Hey, thank you very much.